Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Betty Chen. Predictions for 2024 indicate a revival in the semiconductor industry, driven by ongoing demand for AI and high-performance computing. Key trends to watch in this sector, especially considering the U.S.-China competition, include notable developments at TSMC. Joining today are Konrad Young, former TSMC R&D Director and LeadAgileX Accelerator founding partner, and Mezger, Executive Vice President and COO of Neumonda and President of Memphis Electronic. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show. The last report from Taiwan's MIC shows that the semiconductor industry's revenue in 2023 was around $118 billion, a 14.4% decrease. For 2024, a rebound is expected with projected revenue of around $134.5 billion, growing 13.7%. Professor Young, what do you believe is the key driver for this expected rebound?
I think it's mostly on AI-related and high-performance computing, because the other sector seems to slow down, like mobile, more mature, because of the AI hype today with the ChatGPT application. I think there are a lot of applications which can use this AI application, and with high-performance platform, especially from Nvidia, I think will drive a lot of usage related to this area.
Marco.
Yeah, I think on a global scale, just to add this, what Konrad mentioned is we have this year a very difficult year where there's still inventory digestion. So that's definitely a part of the reason why we have seen this drop this year. And the second part is also on a global scale of the industry. It's also because the memory industry is quite down significantly, down up to 60% for certain product categories. And normally you can say memory is around about 20 to 30% of the semiconductor. So if they are going down, they are dragging everybody down, right? So and that's I think what we have seen this year. And we see already, like you mentioned, we see some positive signs right now in this quarter, especially for memory, that there might be an upward trend going then into 2024. And probably we will be on the same level overall in the semiconductor industry than 2022.
So talking about the AI hype, the possible growth for 2024. So 2024 looks promising for the semiconductor industry, potentially growing over 50%. Yet, what unpredictable factors should we watch out for? For example, the competition between US and China or any other possible conflicts? Marco.
Yeah, I mean, you named it, right? Of course, there's some uncertainty there, right? So we need to look how are the tensions between China and the USA? How do they find a way to mitigate these challenges? Then we have wars in the world. We have still like the Ukraine-Russia war. We have in Israel like the conflict. So I think all of this is having this fear, uncertainty in the market, right, where it's challenging to really fully predict the demand. So I think what Konrad mentioned, the only thing what we really see right now in terms of which can bring up the revenue is artificial intelligence. So that's a huge part of it, and this will also take some of the memory, but it cannot save the whole industry. So I think a part of the increase of the revenue again in the semiconductor industry will also be that the average selling price for certain commodities, for example on memory, will go up, but not because the demand is increasing, but the output, the supply has been constrained. So if you think about NAND flash, Samsung comparing to January 2024, they probably will have at the end of the year only 60% utilization of their factory. So they are cutting back the wafer starts because they make such a significant loss. We are talking about a loss of 10 billion for one company. And it's pretty clear it's not sustainable. So they start basically to reduce the supply. And this reduction in supply will first bring prices up, but it can also create disruptions again in the supply chain.
Thank you, Marco. What about you, Professor Young? What are the unpredictable factors do you foresee for 2024?
Well, what Marco says pretty much summarized it. And I think all this supply chain issue, I think will create some challenge. For example, Taiwan TSMC is moving some production overseas, even though I think it's not going to happen in 2024. But the global supply chain change a little bit, and some of the market might come out with a different kind of pace. Okay, so and the disrupt of U.S. government stop certain kind of supply, especially provide to China, to limit the market growth for China. And one of the worst situation is if China business, the market economy is going further down, it probably will affect other supply also. So I think the main issue to watch here is probably the China market, especially.
Professor Young, what is your perspective on TSMC's future role amidst U.S.-China competition and its ability to remain a global leader in 2024?
Okay, this is probably, first, I'm not co-founder of TSMC, of course, but just one of the R&D early player. And TSMC pretty much take majority of the logic supply. TSMC is not doing memory. Memory is mainly Korean and US Micron. And but that's very important part of the product, okay, the logic product. And so TSMC right now are really facing so-called overseas production challenge because of the cultural difference, especially in US and then probably also in Europe. It's probably much easier to do it in Japan, partially because Japanese has went through almost 20 years downturn. And they are a lot more humble, willing to work with TSMC, willing to supply some help. And that part, I think, will start first for TSMC to at least offer certain supply to the maybe Japanese market and maybe Asian market. But I don't think US supply or even Europe supply will come out soon. And still need the Taiwanese production to support those supply. Fortunately, I think Taiwan right now still has enough fab to supply most of the demand today. I don't foresee a big supply chain disruption at this time. But in the future, I think how do we overcome the US and the Europe production? I think that's probably the one of the future challenge we are going to have.
I just would like to add to Konrad, we talked about TSMC, but also PowerChip, for example, recently announced another around about $5 billion investment. They also decided for Japan. Right? So they have been also looking around to, I think there were different offers, where they basically could build a factory. But PowerChip also decided for Japan, right? Because they have the workforce there, they have basically also kind of the cultural same background. They can execute fast and they need to execute. Because there are also other rising areas or countries who want to get semiconductors. India, they want to get more important on the map. I think for Europe, I see it's a win-win situation for TSMC because first of all, it's different than in the US. US, it's really 100% run by TSMC. In Europe, they have been able to get 3 of the main companies who supply to the automotive industry to be a partly shareholder. And I think this helps this company, I think Bosch, NXP and Infineon, to secure supply. And of course, it also helps the German government who give the subsidies. Not only the government controls this risk, but they have also the benefit to help the automotive industry. And so I mentioned this before, I like the idea of TSMC going global and not just be in Taiwan. So they make new friends in Europe, right? They go inside the system, within the ecosystem, building this up. In the USA, they do the same, right? But for different reasons, because there it's high performance computing, what Konrad mentioned, right? So AI, high performance. We don't need this at this stage in Europe, but we really need, especially for the automotive industry, the chips. And that's why I think it's a very good combination that they are doing this. The challenge will be from zero to hero because they need to do these factories all at the same time. And even for a perfect company like TSMC on execution, it will be a challenge to do this in 3 different or 4 different regions if you calculate also Japan with it.
And you have to do it simultaneously.
Yes.
So that's indeed a challenge faced by TSMC, and also cultural differences, as mentioned by Professor Young. So moving on, Marco, you have previously noted the global race for semiconductor or opportunities and the eagerness to build wafer fabs. And as mentioned before, you talked about India. Foxconn may partner with STMicro Electronics for a 40 nanometer chip plant in India. So Marco, what is your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, every country wants to get a foothold into the semiconductor industry. I mean, they look at Taiwan, what has Taiwan done? But we need to understand Taiwan took many, many decades to be at the stage where they are. You cannot just throw money at it, right? So you need to be focused and you need to understand in which segment you invest the money. So I think in general, the idea with Foxconn, with ST, Foxconn wants to go more in electric vehicles, right? So they want to go more into automotive industry. 40 nanometer is a major process node, what they can use. So it kind of makes sense if they find a way, you know, to deal with the local challenges in India, that they can make it happen. Because none of them is kind of an Indian company, right? So we have Foxconn and we have basically the European ST. I'm sure they must have local partners and they will also supply the local market. But there specifically, I think, yes, it could make sense. If they would aim for, let's say, like below 10 nanometer or 5 nanometer, I would say, makes not so much sense, really. But I think in Europe, with the process node, what they are doing there, we are still on double-digit process nodes. US is single-digit, Japan is single-digit. It makes sense to me because putting the geopolitics aside, I think it's important that we have a more balanced supply chain. We need to have this in the world for risk management, you know, think about natural disasters and others. So I think it's for everybody like a good solution to have, but it comes with a price, literally, because it will be more expensive. If you have many places, the end user need to understand sooner or later you will have to pay a price if you want to have it produced in your region.
So Marco just talked about the balanced supply chain as well as the risk and the prices that we have to consider. Professor, what's your take on this? Do you think this kind of venture between Foxconn in India, how will it impact the global market?
Impact the global market for Foxconn and India, which I think has been disrupted. Right? I don't think it will have much impact at this moment. It definitely is a place to watch for the future. First, I think most of these countries, like India or China, and many countries which has this downstream market to buy chips, and those are ideal for build a fab to do a local supply. I think the main reason has this domestic production is for local demand. For other place which doesn't really have the downstream technology industry, it doesn't make sense today. You need a market to grow that semiconductor manufacturing. Okay, and there's an additional one which I agree with Marcos. It makes a lot of sense. The supply chain has been too concentrated. I still remember back to 1999, on September 21st, when Taiwan has a major earthquake. We had a lot of customers come to us, ask for the risk management. So at that time, we went to WaferTech for US, Singapore for SSMC, for China for Songjiang Fab. But people forget about that because it hasn't been a disaster anymore. The risk management becomes a less issue. And the reason because of China-US tension and also the pandemic probably create additional concern. So I think the risk management issue going to global is very important. But every country has its own culture. I think it's more than just a market. Market is definitely the driver. The culture is the big important factor. I'll just give you an example. When we were US, we call IC industry as the Indian Chinese industry. That does means in US in the 80s, it has a lot of Indian and a lot of Chinese, which we actually is mostly Taiwanese at that time. Okay, and when the semiconductor technology moved to East, a lot of Taiwanese come back to Taiwan to build this the giant industry in Taiwan. But if you look at it, why Indian doesn't really make anything happen? It has a lot of reason for that. Okay, I asked a lot of my Indian friends why you don't go back to India to build your own semiconductor industry. They give tons of reason for that. One of the major reasons is the India is very complicated country. It has a lot of different kind of social system, and there's really no manufacturing culture. Okay, the Indian in US mostly doing this managerial type of work, and typically Chinese are doing more the ground work. Okay, so it actually complementary to each other. So even those people went to India, I don't think can make an Indian becomes a manufacturing country, because the manufacturing is a different culture as a managerial culture. So anyway, it will take time. Okay, so India need to think about how if they want to do a manufacturing. Okay, like I think even Hong Hai in Foxconn want to do it in India. Unless they bring all the Taiwanese people over there, they were facing management issues very similar to TSMC management in Arizona. Okay, very similar. So it will take a while for the cultural breed, and working on the lower, more mature generation technology will definitely make things a little bit easier. When you go to more advanced, require a lot of detail, it will be a little bit harder. So I think the production in other countries today, I think Taiwan, Korea, and maybe Japan, a little bit China. China is probably on the further side. Maybe Singapore a little bit, and then Malaysia has few fabs. One of the reasons is Yale is a very Asian Confucius culture. I always think that the culture make it so perfectly fit for the semiconductor. So other countries which doesn't have this culture need to think about different approach. Instead of using, cannot copy Taiwanese methodology. I think you need to have a system approach, using system complementary with a lower end talent or higher end. And in the middle, manufacturing using the system to help. This will help. I think this kind of production will be better for even for Arizona, even for Europe. So it has a different kind of manufacturing culture, but need to build the manufacturing culture into the system and using human being to complement. That's my idea.
Sounds like a really, really complicated issue.
Yeah.
So not just technology, but also culture.
It has a big cultural issue. Yeah.
Moving on. In light of the worldwide race to establish wafer fabs and TSMC chairman Mark Liu's assertion that 1.4 nanometer technology will stay in Taiwan, what is the expected duration of TSMC's lead advantage, Professor?
I think the technology itself, Samsung and Intel, I think they all have good enough technology. I don't think these three companies will probably go in parallel. Okay, in terms of timing of bringing the technology up, but in terms of bringing the high yield, low cost production, Taiwan probably still has a chance to lead. Okay. I always think about TSMC is like running a 10,000 meter race. We typically are not the first one to bring the technology up, okay, or first one to develop the technology. But we are very good in terms of racing in the last few.
It's like a marathon,
it's
not
a marathon,
sprint.
right? So we have a huge force to kind of overpass the leader and to move ahead, and with the low cost, high yield production. And that part, I think, is still TSMC's strength. TSMC's strength is not making the first technology up in terms of publication or beauty of technology. So So they are all, I think these three companies will probably go very similar, but whether they can be used for the customer to get a higher product, I think TSMC will still have a lead. Okay,
Marco, what's your evaluation? Sorry.
I think Konrad is giving some understatement, because I agree with him what he say that they are very good on the yield, and probably before it was really like this, that they were maybe lagging a little bit behind. But nowadays, since they work so close with Apple, they are forced basically with the newest technology. And when they do this, of course, they have the volume. You have a customer like Apple with the volume. I mean, this is perfect for a manufacturer, right? Because you ramp this up. I heard some news, Konrad, that I think for the new M3 chip, Apple was investing up to 1 billion. 1 billion just for this chip family to bring this up to speed and to produce. And of course, Apple wants to get the newest cutting edge technology. They have the volume. TSMC is execution king, and they basically improve the yield and they make money. So I agree what you said. There might be others who will probably at the same time, or they will be there. But what does it help you if the machine can do it, if you don't have a customer who trusts you? Because also the customers want to work with someone, especially Japanese. They want to know, they don't want to be the guinea pig. They want to see, oh, okay, you have already customers to go. And there TSMC has probably the #1 customer in the world. And not only them, they have Nvidia, they have AMD, you name it. They have all these top volume customers. And that's what I mean, this experience, you cannot just create artificially, you need to have the customer.
So they do still have the advantage. In reaction to the U.S. extending its prohibition on AI chips exports to China, Nvidia has developed 3 advanced AI chips specifically for China. Does this appear to be a strategy of finding a workaround to counter the policy? So Professor Young, could you analyze whether Nvidia's strategy of customizing chips for China will set a precedent for other chip exporters, potentially offsetting the effects of the ban?
Well, for every company, they don't want to give up the Chinese market. It's still a pretty big market. So I think Nvidia will try their best, find a way to kind of avoid the U.S. government regulation. Of course, the U.S. government always come up with something. They are kind of playing a racing game for that. It's going to happen. It's not going to stop, okay? So that does affecting Nvidia a little bit. Fortunately, Nvidia has enough market outside of China, so they still are dominated, and they also have maybe some other way of going around instead of go directly to China, go through other country, and eventually still go to China. That part I don't know. I'm not very expert in that area. And I think Nvidia still will, at this time, it looks like they still dominate this area. The reason why they could be better than AMD, which they are competing in the graphic chips, is AMD need to fight two war. On one part, they need to fight with Intel on CPU. On the other part, they need to fight with Nvidia on the graphic on AI chips. And also, Jensen is a founder. He could put all his will into whatever strategy he could do, but Lisa need to be careful. He's still a general manager, so it sort of make Nvidia as a kind of a possibility of leading that area. But whether U.S. government sanction will affecting them, I think it will probably affect a little bit, but it's not going to affect their leadership in kingdom in that area.
So Jensen Huang was in Taiwan for the KT Lee Award. So basically, he looks still quite happy despite the stock prices fluctuation. Marco, what's your take on this, on Nvidia's future performance?
Yeah, I think they have done a fabulous job, and I was really surprised that everybody was surprised in the financial community, like in Q2, when they showed the numbers and they were all stunned, right? That's basically when the evaluation goes up. To your original question, what Nvidia is doing, there's not only Nvidia, it's also Intel. They have basically chips already which are tailored for the China market. AMD want to do this. I think to the point what Konrad mentioned with the different channels to go into China, USA is trying to block this, like UAE and other countries. They cannot. They also need like a license that you can get this there. But I think what is even more important lately is that, for example, there are now China data centers who are saying they are using Huawei processors. They will go with them. So this means ultimately, I mean, Nvidia is a publicly traded company, right? I mean, like many others. And like Konrad said, the people need to make money. They need to sell product. They need to make a profit. They need to make their shareholders happy. So of course, I think it's understandable that an Intel or Nvidia try to make a product to comply with the US regulations and still be able to catch some of the business. But if you ask me, down the road, even they offer this product, as soon as China has their own product, which has the same spec and performance, they will take the China product,
Yes.
which is normal, because otherwise they know, okay, if I use this product, tomorrow USA can say, oh, now this spec is not correct anymore. And they are very quick in executing this, right? So it's all about self-sufficiency, where they probably will build up. And we only have like a certain period right now where the Western companies are trying to mitigate this if there is not a huge change happening in the China and the US relationships.
Well, President Biden and Xi Jinping will meet in APEC Summit, so maybe we'll see what's going to happen after that. That's all the time we have. Thank you once again for joining us on today's show. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.